So let's get started on these pagoda paintings for our first graders. Now if you're not in first grade, it's okay because you can do this with any kind of age group. I'm just choosing to do this with our first graders because we've been talking about shapes and lines, and this one's a pretty good one for keeping with all of our shapes and lines. So what I have to start with, I have got a pencil. Mine's a little pretty polka dot pencil. Yours can be any kind of pencil that you want to. I've got a white piece of paper, a little bit thicker than some computer paper because we are going to be painting on this. We've got tempera cakes, and really any kind of paint will work with this. I just really like the tempera cakes because they're easy to work with, but if you got watercolors, it's going to work for you too. We have got a cup of water because we know that our tempera cakes don't work without water. And we've got a brush, and mine is a plastic brush with the plastic handle and the synthetic fibers, but really any kind of brush is going to work for you. So before I get to any of that fun stuff, I've actually got to draw out what our pagoda is going to look like. So, like I said, using shapes, using lines, and we're going to start with some squares, rectangles, and straight lines. So let's check this out. You started. We're going to start with a square or rectangle. Now I'm going to be drawing pretty dark on mine because I want you to be able to see on the camera. But remember, draw light till you got it right because it's really hard to erase something that's really, really thick. So I'm starting over here just because I want to, and I'm going to start with a square or a rectangle, and honestly I haven't even decided until I start getting this thing onto the paper. So maybe it's going to be a rectangle. Bam! How easy is that? Everybody's got a rectangle. Alright, now before I go on to the next part of my building, I'm taking a straight horizontal line from the top of my square or rectangle. And I'm leaving a little bit of overhang. It doesn't have to be a giant overhang, just a little overhang. And then I'm going to put 1, 2 diagonal lines to kind of pop that up. Didn't connect it to anything, just 1, 2, popped up some lines. So I'm not making a shape yet, just making some lines. And then I can connect those 2 diagonal lines. And we get this fun shape here. Now next is the next part of my building, and really every pagoda style building is going to be a little bit different, so it's okay if yours doesn't look exactly like this. But I'm going to make this square or rectangle a little bit shorter, a little thinner than the one below it, and really it doesn't matter how tall I make it because I can make it however tall I want to. And then another line right above that. And you do want this one to be a little shorter than the last one that you did, so I'm kind of making sure that it's a little bit shorter here. And again, pop a line up, straight across horizontal. I'm sure you can guess what the next step is. A smaller little rectangle. Whoops, that was not quite as vertical as I wanted it to be, but that is okay. Straight across. Line at the top. Pop it up, straight across. And then we need to talk about the top. Typically, our pagodas are going to have kind of a triangle shape at the top of it. It can be a very pointy triangle. It can be a gentle, curved triangle. It is however you want this thing to look. So I'm going to go with kind of even a little pyramid, wiggly triangle for mine, just because I want it to have a pyramid-y, wiggly top. Okay. You want to make sure that people can get into your building, so we're going to add some doors, some stairs, all the kind of stuff that might make this pagoda building a little bit more livable. So I'm going to come down here, and we know a good shape for a door would be a rectangle. We can add some stairs by taking 2 vertical lines and as many horizontal lines as you want to create this illusion of stairs. You might want a window in your pagoda building. And again, of course, I do want mine to be a bit straighter, but I'm drawing upside down, so cut me some slack. Going straight across, adding some windows. And then you might want to add some little details. The picture that I saw of a different kind of pagoda, they had all these awesome textural lines on it to show where the roof was. So I might even add a little bit of textural lines to this. And guys, you can do whatever kind of lines and patterns you might like on yours, because lines and patterns always make things look really cool. So I might do some cross hatching where we crisscross our lines. And that just gives it a little bit more texture, a little more interesting. Maybe run this one the other way. And we can just get kind of fun with this, because there's no perfect way to do this. Yours does not have to look like mine. And you don't even have to add these lines if you don't want to. I just happen to like crisscrossy lines on my stuff. Okay, now guys, we're going to add a ton of other stuff to this. This is not finished, but, ooh, one more part. How's this roof staying up? Let's add some beams to this. They go to the ground. So it's just a long rectangle, taking a beam to the ground, just so our building stands up and it makes a little bit more sense. You can run a line over there, why not? Okay, now we're going to add a ton more stuff to this. This is not finished, but this is about as far as I'm going to be going with my pencil. And now I'm going to start adding some paint. Now if we've used temper cakes in class before, you know they are dry until we add some water to them. In traditional Japanese paintings, a lot of the ones that we see use this nice dark blue. And of course every artist, especially even Japanese traditional artists, are going to do it all kinds of colors and whatever they want. But we're going to stick to this nice blue. So ignore these other colors. They do not exist right now. We're using this nice cobalty blue. So I'm going to get some water on my brush. And I'm going to swirl around and gently, gently pet my paint, not stabbing it, not squishing it, just very gently getting some paint on my brush. Maybe going back for some more water. Okay, now I am ready to start painting this building. So like I said, we're using the blues, and so everything's going to be blue. Even though in real life this building would not be blue, it would be brown because it's made out of trees and logs and things like that. But we're going to go ahead and stick to the blue traditional colors. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go straight into painting it. I'm going to use the tip of my brush and I am outlining all of my lines. The reason I'm doing this is because this is going to be a really thick, really dark part of this. Because if we were to go in and do the whole thing one blue color, all of those nice details that we made would probably get lost. So I'm just using the very tip, the edge of my brush, and I'm just going to go along my edges. So this is slow work. We're not in a rush because we got plenty of time to do this. I'm just following my lines. Now before I do anything else, before I go in with any other colors, I would go ahead and finish adding all of these lines. So I'm going to speed this up for you guys so you don't have to get bored watching me paint all these little lines. Okay, so now I've got all of my outlines done, and I personally want to leave the rest of my house white because I think if I went in with the rest of the blue, it would really fade out the whole thing and you would no longer see all those beautiful details that we worked with. But that does not mean that we are done painting because we've got all kinds of stuff we can add in the background. So I've got a little bit of paint left on my brush from where I was doing my details and my lines. I'm going to go back to my water, and I just barely dipped it in the water. So right now I have water and paint on my brush, but it's more water than it is paint. A lot of what we see in Japanese painting, especially what I've shown you guys in class, are mountains in the background. They have gorgeous mountains and gorgeous forests there. So we're going to do some of those mountains in the background. So we know that a good line for mountains is a zigzag line, but let's keep it a lot more simple. Let's go with one gentle curved line. And I kind of started here at my house because I'm going to have two mountains. So I've got a gentle curved line. And I might do another mountain. It is okay to overlap these. You can have giant mountains, you can have short mountains. And I added some mountains with just 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. I've got some mountains in the background. We know that we don't want our stuff floating up in the sky. So I'm going to add a ground line, not down below the house because then it's floating in the sky. It's kind of unrealistic for it to meet right there at the house, so I'm putting it a little bit about halfway behind the house. That way, and it doesn't have to be straight, you can have a curved hilly line behind your house. That way our house is on the ground and we can see where the mountain meets the rest of the ground. We can add trees, and again I'm using just my blue color, keeping with that traditional style, with some vertical lines, diagonal lines. You can use a little peck and just dot down some leaves onto your trees. We don't have to do that big bushy lollipop trees. And let's get some awesome kinds of shadows here because my paint is pooling and it's getting some dark areas and some light areas. It's turning out really awesome. Now I know that I said that we are mostly going to be using all of this blue stuff, and we are mostly going to be using all of this blue stuff. Maybe some little clouds in the back, maybe little birds, I know. Other art teachers don't like these little birds. I like these little birds, so they're going to yell at me for this, but I enjoy these little birds so much. And maybe some little clouds. Now, I know that we said we're only going to use this blue, but I did fib a little bit. We're going to use a tiny bit of red because a lot of traditional Japanese paintings have a little pop of red in them. So right now I'm ready for a new color. I'm going to rinse my brush and make sure that it's nice and clean. And I'm going on to my temper cakes. I'm going to get some red, very gently swirling, not stabbing, and getting some red on my brush. Now we're going to add a nice big sun over here. Now it doesn't matter where in the sky you put it. You'll want it above the mountains because it's not realistic to have the sun down in front of the mountains. Okay, it'd be bad news for all of us if your sun was down in front of the mountains. You could even have it going behind the mountains and only see half the sun or a quarter of the sun, and you don't have to see the whole thing. But I'm going to make it, what shape is the sun? It's a circle. I'm going to make it a circle just anywhere on my page. I chose right here in the middle, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now sometimes I've seen you guys using lots of little sun rays, and that's usually okay, but when we're sticking with this traditional style, they did not use sun rays, the little diagonal lines coming out. They only did one circle for their painting. So I have added one red circle to my painting. So right now we're looking like this. I've got my traditional pagoda, got some mountains in the background, a little bit of trees, one big sun. Guys, you can go on and on with these details. I'm rinsing out my brush again because I want to go back and get some more of that blue and maybe add some leaves and sticks and grass to the ground. And really, I'm just adding diagonal lines. And with our nice flat brushes, I'm just kind of poking it down, letting the brush do the work. So really, it does not have to be a hard job. You're letting it do the work all on its own. Maybe even overlapping the house a little bit. That could be cool. So this is just giving our painting a little more depth, a little more interest. And then that is gonna be almost all of our details. Now one thing we could do if we've got some extra time, and if you're wanting to do this, you can add some shadows to this, especially up in these mountains. I just loaded up my brush with some more of our dark blue paint, and I might make a little shadow here. So I'm going right on this line and I'm just pulling a shadow. So I'm pulling my paint up, kind of making it a shadow. And I could even do that on this side and pull a shadow down over here. So that gives it a little bit more depth. Maybe even do it on all the sides, give it a little more. I'm going to not get more paint on my brush this time. I'm going to go straight to my water, rinse out my brush. So right now there's only water on my brush, and I can pull that paint. And so it's not really going to interfere with the rest of the stuff. It's going to blend into the tree a little bit, and that is okay. And it's just going to make it look a little more interesting instead of having just some blank lines and a bunch of white paper. So this is, I am painting with water right now. I've got no paint on my brush. It's just picking up on the paint around it. I might even go back and add some more paint to my tree to make it stand out a little more. So again, pulling the paint. I've got no paint on my brush. It is just water. Because we can paint with just water using what's on our paper. Now my bird was a little bit dry right there, so I can paint right over my bird and he's going to be perfectly fine. Okay, I'm going to go back and get some more blue and poke my leaves back in because they did get a little bit lost there. Make my leaves stand out a little more. You don't have to put just one tree, you can put as many trees as you like. Alright, and then I'm going to call this one done for my example. Now remember guys, when you're in class, you can change this however you want to. Just remember the stuff that we're learning. If we're learning about pagoda houses, you don't want to make a traditional American house because then that shows me that you're not learning about the Japanese culture like we wanted to do. And you got to stick to the right colors because we want to learn about the styles that they're doing. We know the styles that we are doing, and we want to learn about what they're doing instead. So this is my example for our Japanese pagoda. Change it up how you like, but stick to the original tradition. Alright guys, see you around.